Twitter is a war zone. If somebody's going to jump in the war zone, it's like, okay, you're in the arena. Let's go.
Elon Musk is the real Iron Man, an immigrant who came from South Africa and built one of the largest fortunes in history of mankind.
I think X.com could absolutely be a multi-billion-dollar bonanza.
Starting with PayPal, he has been able to build different multi-billion-dollar businesses. Companies like Tesla have transformed the entire automotive industry, showing the path to create renewable energy sources. On top of that, SpaceX is making it possible to explore the universe and beyond. There is no doubt that Elon Musk is one of the most successful entrepreneurs, if not the most successful of our time. Knowing this, in 2022, Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion with the idea of restructuring the company, strengthening free speech, and turning it profitable.
Oh yeah, Twitter.
On top of that, a couple of months later, after the acquisition, he announced that he will change the name to X and then build the first super app in the US. The first has already happened. You can see the iconic Twitter bird is no longer its logo. Regarding the second, some people think that it will not be possible to build a super app, but others think that if there is a small chance to build a company like that, Elon will be the only one capable of doing it. First of all, we need to understand what a super app is. At the start of our day, we ask for an Uber to go to work. Then, after we arrive at our destination, we go to a Starbucks and pay using our mobile wallet. During lunch, we order our food via an app. All this happens while we are chatting with our friends using another app. We use 4 apps to complete some of our most basic tasks during a normal day. Well, in China, it only takes one: WeChat.
I mean, we don't even have an app that's as good as WeChat in China. And like in China, you can like live on WeChat basically. It's like, yeah, everyone's like, you live on WeChat, you do payments, you do everything. It's like, yeah, it's great. Basically, WeChat's kick-ass, and we don't have anything like WeChat outside of China.
The company has transformed China entirely. It was born in 2011 when its parent company, Tencent, decided to launch a social media app where users could chat with each other easily and quickly, something like WhatsApp or Messenger. A couple of years later, they introduced payments, and then they have not stopped growing. They introduced ride-sharing, delivery, games, and probably the pillar of its success as a super app along with payments, the mini program. As you can see at first glance, the app interface looks very similar to WhatsApp. You can navigate between chats, contacts, your profile, and the broader app. The Discover tab has a portal through the rest of the app. In Moments, users can share pictures and updates like Instagram's newsfeed. The Shake feature is a feature that helps you find new friends by matching you with somebody anywhere in the world who is shaking their phone at the exact time that you are. Pretty cool, right? The search lets you find new articles, popular topics, and official accounts. Finally, we enter into the 2 pillars of the app, along with the chat feature, scan, and mini programs. China is already a cashless society. The majority of the payments are done digitally. Over the last 15 years, mobile payments in China have grown into a 16 trillion market dominated by 2 of the biggest tech giants, Tencent with WeChat and Alibaba with Alipay. All this transformation has been possible thanks to QR codes, which push China to become a cashless society. In China, they're using it for everything, from paying for clothes to paying for food, and even to paying for vegetables in informal stores in the street. Other interesting use cases are to pay for the metro, where you put a QR code generated by your WeChat app, or scanning smart toilet paper dispensers in public restrooms. The other pillar is the mini programs, which basically save tons of time and space for users on their phones. They offer access to a decent variety of services straight from WeChat, a ride-hailing and food delivery business operated by Didi, where you can not only ask for a car or food but also pay directly through WeChat Pay. In addition to this, individual restaurants might have their own mini programs, accessed via QR code on the table. Many restaurants frequently incorporate mini apps into their services, allowing users to utilize them through a QR code on the restaurant table. This enables customers to place their food orders, complete payments, and receive their food at their table, all without the need for human assistance. For 2022, WeChat had 1.3 billion users. The majority of Chinese people use the app in their day-to-day lives. To put you in context, users spend more than double the average time spent on Instagram. With all this success, everyone, and especially Elon Musk, is wondering why there is no super app in the US.
I was like, my idea would be like, how about if we just copy WeChat?
With a bigger economy and a population that has been more accustomed to the use of technology for decades, one would think that it would not be difficult for a company to build a super app in the US. Well, that's not true. To build a super app, a company needs to replicate the two pillars, multi-product and payments. Having the ability to pay is fundamental for the creation of an ecosystem. Without payments, transactions do not happen instantly, which reduces the value proposition of the multi-product approach. In the US, social platforms have tried unsuccessfully to enter the payment space. Snap introduced Snap Cash, and after 4 years they closed it, while companies like Venmo or Cash App have grown exponentially. It is important to understand that the financial industry is probably one of the most regulated industries in the world. Chinese super apps took advantage of limited government regulation related to data privacy protection. Both WeChat and Alipay had the chance to use customer funds stored in their digital wallets to invest in overnight funds and interest-bearing accounts. This is something that in most countries is not allowed, including the US. In addition to this, these apps were not required to share important financial transaction data with regulators or implement robust systems to prevent money laundering and other illicit transactions. Although nowadays this has changed, this growth would not have been possible in more tightly regulated markets. On top of that, the ways in which China regulates foreign apps more strictly than other countries contributed to the growth of its super app economy. Decisions such as blocking Facebook, Google, and YouTube, among others, also serve to shield indigenous infant apps like WeChat from foreign competition. Another driving factor around the payment systems is the big reliance that Americans have on credit and debit cards. While in the US this payment method is widely used, in other countries like China, Southeast Asia, or Latin America, things are different. Credit and debit cards never became widespread. Instead, mobile payment systems boost financial inclusion for all these people. This was mainly motivated by the fact that credit and debit card processing fees are costly for merchants, who were reluctant to accept them. Services like WeChat and Alipay took advantage of this problem and met these needs by offering a largely free system for transacting and storing digital funds. On the other side, we have multi-product. Companies like Uber have built different services but on a narrow basis. They have introduced grocery delivery, public transportation, and many other services related to transportation. However, if there is a company that has successfully launched complementary features in their core, it's Facebook. Gaming, marketplace, dating, among other services have built an ecosystem within the platform. However, the majority of these features are not daily use services, which reduce their impact, and of course they don't have payments incorporated within the platform, which creates a friction in the process. In addition to this, Facebook sometimes has done the opposite strategy to become a super app. For instance, in 2018, they decided to separate the Messenger app from the Facebook app with the intention of making the app simpler. The reality is that the culture plays a pivotal role in the expansion of this type of services. Asian people never experienced the internet widely on desktops, where these companies and services were highly fragmented. Instead, their first experience was through a mobile app, where tech giants rapidly create ecosystems that later become super apps. In contrast, Americans are used to using different services. They tend to view large corporations with suspicion, whether due to a simple distaste for excessively powerful companies or concerns about privacy and trust. Another problem around super apps is Apple and Google. While Google does not operate in China, Apple does and is very successful there. But have you ever thought about how the mini program impacts directly on the App Store strategy of Apple? Apple normally charges 30% of the revenue generated through its App Store. The so-called in-app purchases have created a big concern within the tech space. Companies like Epic Games have publicly complained about the overcharging that Apple does within the ecosystem. However, things are different in China. In-app purchase does not operate in the same way as outside China. The company, driven by the ambition to conquer the massive Chinese population, has given in on many requests, such as its monetization policy or the mini program features of WeChat, which is like a mini app store within WeChat. This, of course, will not happen in the US.
Whether it's through self-preferencing, predatory pricing, or requiring users to buy additional products, the dominant platforms have wielded their power in destructive, harmful ways in order to expand. Simply put, they have too much power.
The chances of building a super app within the US are very low. However, if there is a chance to build one, it must be Meta, mainly relying on WhatsApp and Messenger. it won't be X. The reason behind this is that in order to build a multi-product strategy, it's very important that the core product is a ultra-high daily use product. Nowadays, the only product that meets this condition is chat messaging. If Meta solves the monetization problem within the US, the chances are high that they could build a multi-product strategy. However, in the case of X, it is very hard for a company that does not have even 100 million users within the US to create a multi-product strategy successfully, especially if we take into consideration that its core product is not in the top 5 of daily usage apps within the US.